Please don't fire my dad, begged the employee's son on his knees. Richard Coleman had his fingers tense over the termination letter when he heard small footsteps approaching his office. The most feared businessman in New York City had decided there would be no exceptions this time for absent employees. That's when he saw an 8-year-old boy appear at his office door, his face streaked with tears he was trying to hold back. Without hesitation, the boy knelt on the cold marble floor and clasped his hands in supplication. "Sir, please don't fire my dad," said Tyler, his voice choked. "I know he missed 3 days, but it was for a very important reason." Richard felt his chest tighten in a way he hadn't in years. The letter trembled in his hands as he looked at the boy with dark hair and a plain grey t-shirt, staring at him with eyes full of hope and despair. "How did you get in here, kid?" the businessman asked, trying to keep his usual cool tone. "I've known Aunt Sharon at the front desk since I was little. She let me up because she said it was urgent," Tyler replied, still on his knees. "My dad is Anthony Parker, from maintenance. He's always been a good employee, sir, always." The name echoed in Richard's mind. Anthony Parker, 15 years with the company, had never caused any trouble before. Until this week, when he simply didn't show up for 3 days in a row, no call, no explanation. "Stand up, son," Richard said, his voice softer than he intended. "Tell me why your father was absent." Tyler slowly got up, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. "My grandma Margaret is very sick, sir. She's lived with us ever since my mum left. Dad couldn't leave her alone at the hospital. She's all he has besides me." The revelation hit Richard like a punch to the gut. He vaguely remembered hearing Anthony was a single father, but had never paid attention to the details of his employees' personal lives. "And why didn't your father come to me? Why didn't he explain the situation?" he asked, genuinely curious. Tyler lowered his head, embarrassed. "He said you're a very busy and important man, that you wouldn't bother with the problems of a simple employee like him. Dad always says you're fair but strict." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot for those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. Richard set the letter down on the desk and stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. At 45, he had built a business empire on strict rules and iron discipline, but something about this boy's sincerity was shaking his convictions. "Tyler, right," he said, turning back to the boy. "How old are you?" "8, sir. I'll be 9 next month," Tyler replied, straightening his shoulders as if trying to appear older. "And you came here alone?" "Yes, sir. I took 2 buses. Dad's at the hospital with Grandma Margaret. She had a complication last night. I slept at Mrs. Linda's, our neighbor, but she had to work this morning." Richard felt another pang in his chest. The determination this boy had to protect his father was something he rarely saw, even in the adults around him. "Shouldn't you be in school?" he asked. "Yes, sir. But today it was more important to be here. My teacher always says, 'Family comes first,'" Tyler replied with a seriousness beyond his years. The businessman returned to his chair, watching the boy who remained standing, his hands clasped in front of him. There was something about Tyler's posture that reminded him of someone, but he couldn't place who. "Tell me more about your father, Tyler. How is life treating you all?" The boy's eyes lit up as he spoke about his father. "Dad is the best father in the world, sir. He works really hard so I don't go without. In the morning, he takes me to school before coming to work, and at night he always makes time to help me with my homework. On weekends, we visit Grandma Margaret at the nursing home where she lived before she got sick." "Nursing home?" Richard raised an eyebrow. "Yes, sir. Dad didn't earn enough to take care of her at home, so she stayed at St. Vincent Care Home. But now that she's really sick, he brought her home. He said he wouldn't let her spend her last moments away from family." The word family echoed in Richard's mind. He himself had lost touch with his parents years ago, too busy building his empire to worry about family ties. His own wife, Catherine, often complained about his emotional absence. "Tyler, does your dad know you're here?" The boy lowered his head again, confirming Richard's suspicions. "No, sir. He'd be mad at me. He said a man handles his own problems, But I couldn't just stand by and watch him suffer. Last night I heard him crying in the bathroom thinking I was asleep. The image of a grown man crying silently so as not to worry his son struck Richard unexpectedly. He couldn't remember the last time he had cried, or the last time he had shown vulnerability to anyone. "You're very brave, Tyler," he finally said, "but also very stubborn." "Dad always says stubbornness can be a good thing if you use it to protect the people you love," the boy replied with a shy smile. Richard couldn't help but smile back. There was something captivating about the boy's honesty, a purity he had lost long ago in corporate games and business betrayals. "I'll make a deal with you, Tyler. I'll give your dad a second chance, but on one condition." Tyler's eyes widened with hope. "Any condition, sir, anything. You're going back to school right now, and you'll tell your dad there's a job waiting for him once your grandmother's situation settles. But you'll also tell him, I want to speak with him in person." Tyler practically jumped with joy, but restrained himself, holding out his small hand to Richard. "Thank you, Mr. Coleman, you won't regret it. My dad is the best employee you've got." Richard shook the boy's hand, surprised by the firmness of his grip for someone so young. "I'm sure he is, Tyler. Now go, and be careful on your way back." After the boy left, Richard stood alone in his office, staring at the termination letter that now felt as heavy as lead in his hands. He tore the paper into tiny pieces and threw it in the trash. That afternoon, he did something he hadn't done in years. He left the office early. He drove to the local public hospital, following the address he had found in Anthony Parker's employee file. He found the man in the hallway on the 3rd floor, sitting in a blue plastic chair, his head in his hands. Anthony Parker was about 35, with prematurely graying hair and simple but clean, well-kept clothes. "Anthony," Richard called, and the man quickly lifted his head, his eyes red from exhaustion and worry. "Mr. Coleman?" Anthony stood abruptly, clearly surprised and nervous. "What? How did you know I was here?" "Your son paid me a visit this morning." Anthony's expression instantly shifted to a mix of pride and fatherly concern. "Tyler, that kid, I told him not to get involved in this." "Sir, I can explain the absences." "No need," Richard interrupted. "Your son already explained everything. I came here to see the situation for myself." Anthony seemed unable to believe what he was hearing. "Sir, I know I broke the company rules. If you want to fire me, I understand. I just ask that you don't punish my son because of my irresponsibility." Richard studied the man before him. There was something familiar in his features, a resemblance he couldn't quite place. Anthony had the same determined eyes as his son, but his face bore the weight of responsibilities that had aged him prematurely. "Tell me about your mother, Anthony." "Margaret Parker, sir. She's 72, raised 5 children alone after my father left us. Worked her whole life as a housekeeper to give us an education and dignity. Now she has severe pneumonia, and the doctors don't know if she'll recover at her age." Anthony's voice faltered at the end, and Richard saw in the older man the same vulnerability he'd noticed in his son that morning. "And Tyler's mother?" Anthony hesitated before answering, as if the question brought painful memories. "Jessica left us when Tyler was 3, said she wasn't ready to be a mother, that she wanted to live her youth. We never heard from her again. Tyler sometimes asks about her, but I always tell him she's away for work." "Were you married?" "No, sir. We were very young when Tyler was born. I was 26, she was 22. We tried to make it work for his sake, but—" Anthony shrugged, a resigned gesture. "Some people aren't cut out for family responsibilities." Richard thought of his own wife, Catherine, who often complained about his overcommitment to work. Ironically, he was being criticized for working too much, while Anthony was being punished for putting family first. "May I meet your mother?" Anthony seemed surprised by the request, but nodded. "Of course, sir. She's sleeping now, but I think it's fine." They walked down the hall to a room with 4 beds. Margaret Parker lay in the 3rd bed, connected to machines monitoring her vitals. Even ill, it was clear she had once been a strong woman, her features marked by a lifetime of hard work. "She looks a lot like Tyler," Richard remarked, observing the sleeping woman. "Yes, sir. Tyler takes more after the Parkers than his mother's side. My mother always says he has the same stubborn spirit. that helped us survive so many hardships. Just then, Margaret opened her eyes, still drowsy from medication. Anthony? Her voice was weak but tender. Who is this gentleman? Mom, this is my boss, Mr. Richard Coleman. Margaret's eyes lit up with a brightness that surprised Richard. My son's boss? She tried to sit up, and Anthony gently helped her. Mr. Coleman, it's a pleasure. Anthony always speaks of you with great respect. The pleasure is mine, Mrs. Parker. I came because I heard you needed special care. Oh, sir, I'm sorry my son missed work because of me. I told him to leave me at the hospital, but he's as stubborn as his late father, Margaret said with a faint but genuine smile. You have nothing to apologize for. A son who cares for his mother is a reason for pride, not excuses. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now continuing, Margaret smiled more broadly, and Richard noticed her smile was identical to Tyler's. Do you have children, Mr. Coleman? The question caught Richard off guard. He and Catherine had tried for years to have children without success. Eventually, they'd both let the matter drop, burying themselves in their respective careers. No, Mrs. Margaret, I don't have children. What a shame. You seem like a good man. Children need good men in their lives, said the woman with the wisdom of someone who had raised 5 kids on her own. Anthony was clearly uncomfortable with the personal conversation between his boss and his mother, but Richard seemed genuinely interested. You raised 5 children alone. That must have been very difficult. It was, sir. But every sacrifice was worth it. They all graduated, have good jobs, families. Anthony here is my youngest, but he's always been the most responsible. When the others grew up and moved out, he stayed to take care of me. Richard looked at Anthony with new respect. This wasn't just an employee who had missed work. He was someone who had dedicated his whole life to his family. And Tyler, what's it like being his grandmother? Margaret's eyes filled with happy tears. That boy is the light of my life, sir. Smart, brave, with a heart as big as the world. I always tell Anthony that Tyler is going to be someone important in life. Mark my words. Just then, hurried footsteps echoed down the hall, and Tyler appeared at the door, still in his school uniform. Dad, he shouted, running to hug Anthony. Mrs. Linda told me you were here. How's Grandma? I'm better now that you're here, my angel, said Margaret, opening her arms for her grandson. Tyler rushed to kiss her but stopped abruptly when he saw Richard in the room. Mr. Coleman, what are you doing here? Richard smiled at the boy's confused expression. I came to meet your family, Tyler, and to tell your father he has his job back when he's ready to return. Tyler looked at his dad, then at his boss, then at his grandmother, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Really? Dad's not getting fired? Really, Richard confirmed. But your father and I have some things to talk about. Anthony still seemed stunned by his boss's unexpected kindness. Mr. Coleman, I don't know how to thank you. I promise once my mother's better, I'll make up for every day I missed. I can work overtime, weekends. That won't be necessary, Anthony. But I do want to suggest something different. Everyone in the room fell silent, waiting. I want you to bring Tyler to visit the company. I think he'd enjoy seeing where his father works. Tyler nearly jumped with excitement. Really, Dad? I get to see where you work? Anthony was still processing everything, but Margaret smiled warmly. Say yes, son. It's a chance for Tyler to see the working world. If it's no trouble for you, sir, Anthony said hesitantly. No trouble at all. In fact, I think Tyler could teach us a thing or two about courage and determination, Richard replied, winking at the boy. 3 days later, when Margaret was stable enough to be alone for a few hours, Anthony took Tyler to see the company. The boy was dressed in his best outfit, clean jeans and a polo shirt Anthony had saved for special occasions. Dad, is this where you work every day? Tyler asked, staring in awe at the glass and steel building. Yep, son. 20th floor, maintenance department. That's so high. Can you see the whole city from up there? Anthony smiled at his son's excitement. You sure can. After the tour, I'll show you the view from my office window. At reception, Sharon, the receptionist who had let Tyler upstairs days before, greeted them with a warm smile. Hi, Tyler. How's your grandma? Better, Aunt Sharon. Thanks for letting me come up the other day. If it weren't for you, my dad might have lost his job. Sharon exchanged a knowing glance with Anthony. Sometimes we need to break a few small rules to do the right thing, she said, winking at Tyler. When they arrived at Richard Coleman's office, Tyler was amazed by the size of the room and the panoramic view of the city. Wow! From here you can even see the hospital where Grandma is. Richard smiled at the boy's genuine excitement. Tyler, I want to show you something. Do you know what your father does at the company? He makes sure everything runs smoothly. Fixes things that break. Keeps everything clean and organized. Exactly, but let me show you why that's so important. Richard took Tyler to a window overlooking the maintenance department. From there, they could see Anthony Parker working with other employees, checking equipment and coordinating repairs. See those men working with your dad? They keep this company running. Without them, nothing we do here would be possible. Your father is a vital part of this machine. Tyler watched his father with eyes shining with pride. He's always been my hero, Mr. Coleman. Now I see he's a hero to a lot of people. The sincerity in the boy's voice touched Richard in a way he hadn't expected. In recent years, he'd grown used to adults saying only what they thought he wanted to hear. Tyler's honesty was refreshing. Tyler, can I ask you a personal question? Of course, sir. What do you want to be when you grow up? Tyler thought for a moment before answering. I want to be like my dad, someone who works hard to take care of the people he loves, but I also want to have enough money so my dad doesn't have to worry so much. The answer surprised Richard. Most kids dreamed of being astronauts, doctors, or soccer players. Tyler dreamed of taking care of his family. And how do you plan to earn that money? By studying hard. My teacher always says education is the best inheritance parents can leave their children. Dad couldn't study much because he had to work early to help Grandma, but he always encourages me to study. Just then, Catherine, Richard's wife, appeared at the office door. She had come to pick up her husband for a lunch they'd scheduled. Richard, you forgot about our... She stopped when she saw Tyler in the room. Hello, who are you? Hi, Mom. I'm Tyler, Anthony Parker's son. I came to see where my dad works. Catherine looked at Richard with a questioning expression. Catherine, this is the boy I told you about yesterday, the one who came to talk to me about his father. Catherine knelt to Tyler's eye level, studying his face with interest. So you're the brave boy who saved your father's job? Tyler blushed with embarrassment. I just did what any son would do, ma'am. Not every son would have your courage, Tyler. You must be very special. As Catherine spoke with Tyler, Richard watched the interaction. His wife, who was usually reserved with strangers, seemed genuinely charmed by the boy. Tyler, do you like to read? Catherine asked. I love it. Dad always takes me to the public library on Saturdays. I'm reading a book about astronauts. How interesting. What else do you enjoy doing? I like helping my dad at home, playing soccer with the kids on my street and telling stories to Grandma when she's sad. Catherine exchanged a meaningful glance with Richard. Both were thinking the same thing. This boy had qualities many adults had lost. Richard, why don't we invite Tyler and his father to dinner at our house this weekend? Catherine suggested spontaneously. The suggestion took both Richard and Tyler by surprise. Really, Mom? At your house? Tyler asked, eyes wide. Why not? It would be a pleasure to get to know your family better, Catherine replied sincerely. Richard was surprised by his wife's initiative. Catherine rarely took an interest in the company's employees, preferring to keep her personal and professional lives separate. Tyler, what do you think? Would you like to ask your father if he'd accept the invitation? I'll ask him, but I think he'll be nervous. He's never had dinner at a boss's house before. Tell him it's not a boss and employee dinner. It's a dinner between friends, said Richard, surprised by his own words. Later that afternoon, after Tyler and Anthony had left, Richard and Catherine were in the car on their way home. You were impressed by the boy, Richard observed. I was. There's something about him that reminds me of, I don't know, an innocence we don't see much anymore, and his devotion to his father is touching. You've never shown interest in the employees before. Catherine stayed silent for a moment, looking out the window. Maybe because I never had a reason. Tyler made me think about things I'd forgotten. What kind of
Seeing that boy talk about his father with so much love and pride made me wonder if we'll ever have that in our lives. Catherine's comment touched a sore spot Richard preferred not to dwell on. The absence of children in their lives had left a void they both tried to fill with work and material comforts. Catherine, do you still think about that? About having kids? Sometimes, especially when I see how Tyler and Anthony complete each other, how they're a real family even with all their struggles.
Richard drove in silence for a few minutes, processing the events of the past few days.
Meeting Tyler had stirred something deep inside him, a part he'd buried under years of ambition and business pragmatism. The following Saturday, Anthony and Tyler arrived at Richard's house at the agreed time. Anthony was visibly nervous, wearing his best suit, though it was still modest compared to the Coleman standard of living. "Dad, relax," said Tyler, adjusting his father's tie. "Mr. Richard and Mrs. Catherine are good people." "It's different at work, Tyler. In their home, we're guests. We have to behave properly." Tyler laughed at his father's concern. "Dad, you always behave properly. You taught me that." The Coleman's home was elegant yet welcoming, tastefully decorated without being showy. Catherine greeted them with a warm smile, and Richard seemed more relaxed than he did at work. "How's your mother, Anthony?" Catherine asked as she led them to the living room. "Better, Mrs. Catherine. She's responding well to treatment. She should be discharged next week." "That's wonderful news." Tyler must be excited to have his grandmother back home. "I am, Mrs. Catherine. Grandma Margaret makes the best chocolate truffles in the world. She promised to make a fresh batch when she gets home." Richard poured soda for Tyler and offered wine to Anthony, who politely declined, preferring soda as well. "I don't drink, sir. Made a promise when Tyler was born. I wanted to make sure I'd always be present and clear-headed for him." The answer struck Richard, who was used to executives who saw alcohol as essential to business socializing. Over dinner, conversation flowed naturally. Tyler talked about school, his dreams, and his neighborhood adventures. Anthony spoke passionately about his work, explaining the technical challenges of keeping a building running. "Anthony, did you study engineering?" Catherine asked. "I took a technical course in electronics when Tyler was little, studied at night after he fell asleep. It was hard but worth it. Helped me get a better position at the company." "And do you plan to study further?" Anthony hesitated before answering. "I've always wanted to get an engineering degree, but with Tyler being young and my mother needing care, there was never enough time or money." "Dad is really smart," Tyler interrupted proudly. "He helps me with math and even teaches me things the teacher hasn't explained yet." Richard grew thoughtful. He had a talented employee who was being underutilized due to a lack of development opportunities. "Anthony, have you ever considered taking online college courses? With your practical experience, it would be easier." "I've thought about it, sir, but tuition is expensive, and I can't compromise the family budget." "What if the company offered a scholarship program for employees?" The question caught Anthony off guard. "The company would do that?" "I'm thinking of implementing such a program. Dedicated employees like you deserve growth opportunities." Tyler looked at his father with shining eyes. "Dad, you could be a real engineer." "Easy, Tyler. It's just an idea for now," Anthony said, but Richard could see hope growing in his eyes. After dinner, while Anthony and Richard talked on the porch, Catherine took Tyler to see the house. In Richard's home office, Tyler was amazed by the number of books. "Mrs. Catherine, have you read all these books?" "Most of them. Richard loves history and biographies of businessmen. I prefer novels and psychology books. Mr. Richard must be really smart." "He is. But you know, Tyler, intelligence isn't just about books. You showed a lot of intelligence when you stood up for your dad." Tyler grew thoughtful. "Mrs. Catherine, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, dear. Do you not have kids because you don't want them or because you can't?" The question, asked with a child's innocence, hit Catherine unexpectedly. She sat beside Tyler on the sofa. "It's complicated, Tyler. Sometimes life doesn't go as planned." "I get it. Dad always says life is like a puzzle. Sometimes the pieces don't fit the way we want. But that doesn't mean the puzzle will turn out ugly." The boy's simple wisdom brought tears to Catherine's eyes. Your father is very wise. Yeah. He always has an answer for everything. Even when he doesn't know, he makes up an answer that makes sense, Tyler said, laughing. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. That night, after Anthony and Tyler left, Richard and Catherine talked late into the evening. What did you think of them? Richard asked. They're special people. Anthony is a man of integrity, and Tyler is extraordinary. Did you notice how they complete each other? How they're truly a family? Catherine nodded thoughtfully. Richard, do you think we've missed something important by focusing only on careers and material success? Why do you ask? Seeing them today, the way they support each other, love unconditionally. It made me realize our house is beautiful, but sometimes it feels empty. Richard stayed silent, knowing Catherine was putting into words feelings he'd been experiencing himself. Maybe it's not too late to change some things, he finally said. What do you mean? I don't know yet, but Tyler and Anthony reminded me of values I'd forgotten. Maybe we can learn from them. The following Monday, Richard arrived at the office with a different energy. He called the HR director for a meeting. Charles, I want to discuss creating an employee scholarship program. Charles looked surprised. Scholarships? What kind of program do you have in mind? Employees with a good track record who want to pursue college or technical courses. The company would cover a percentage of tuition in exchange for a commitment to stay. That's an interesting investment. Do you have someone specific in mind? Anthony Parker from the maintenance department, but I want it to be a program open to all employees who meet the criteria. I'll prepare a proposal. When do you want to implement it? As soon as possible. That afternoon, Richard went down to the maintenance department, something he rarely did. The employees were visibly nervous at the presence of the company's president. Anthony, can I speak with you? Of course, Mr. Coleman. Is there a problem? No problem. In fact, I have a proposal for you. Richard explained the scholarship program, and Anthony fell silent for a long moment. Sir, is this for real? The company would really do this for me. For employees who deserve it, yes. You've been here 15 years, always dedicated and capable. It's time we invested in your growth. Anthony felt his eyes welling with tears. Mr. Coleman, I don't know how to thank you. Tyler is going to be so proud. Tyler is already proud of you, Anthony. Now it's time for you to be proud of yourself. That night, when Anthony came home with the news, Tyler literally jumped for joy. Daddy's going to be an engineer. Daddy's going to be an engineer. Margaret, who had been discharged from the hospital that day, smiled at the sight of her son and grandson's happiness. I always knew this day would come, my son. You deserve all the good things in life. Mom, this is only happening because of Tyler. If he hadn't gone to talk to Mr. Coleman. Tyler just planted the seed, son, but the soil was already prepared. You've always been special. You just needed someone to see it. 3 months later, Anthony started his online electrical engineering course. The nights were long, studying after Tyler fell asleep, but he was determined to make the most of the opportunity. Tyler, in turn, had become a regular presence at the company on Saturdays. Richard had set up an informal program where Tyler helped with small administrative tasks in exchange for time in the company library. Mr. Richard, can I ask you something? Tyler said one Saturday. Of course, Tyler. Why are you being so good to us? Not that I mind, but Dad always says nothing in life is free. Richard stopped reviewing the papers in front of him and looked at the boy. Tyler, have you ever heard of inspiration? Like when someone gives you a good idea. Something like that. Inspiration is when someone makes you want to be a better person. You and your father inspired me. How so? You reminded me of important things I'd forgotten, like family, loyalty, courage, things money can't buy. Tyler grew thoughtful. Dad always says the best things in life don't cost money, like hugs, smiles, grandma's stories. Your father is very wise, Tyler. He is. But now he stays up late studying. Sometimes I worry he's pushing himself too hard." Richard heard the genuine concern in the boy's voice. "Do you want to help your father with his studies?" "I do, but the subjects are too hard for me." "What if I arranged a tutor for both of you? Someone who could explain the difficult material?" Tyler's eyes lit up. "You'd do that? Really? I'll talk to your father about it." That afternoon, Richard had a serious conversation with Anthony about academic support. At first, Anthony resisted, saying he was already receiving too much help. "Anthony, let me be direct. You're one of our most valuable employees. Investing in your education is investing in the company's future. And Tyler has extraordinary potential. It would be a waste not to nurture it. Sir, I'll accept the help for Tyler, but for me, for you too. This isn't charity, Anthony. It's an investment. The more you learn, the more valuable you become to the company." Reluctantly, Anthony agreed. The tutor was a retired teacher named Margaret, who had worked for decades in technical schools. She came to the Parker home twice a week, helping Anthony with calculus and physics, and Tyler with extra schoolwork. "This boy is exceptionally bright," Margaret told Anthony after a few weeks. "He has a knack for math that I rarely see in kids his age. Tyler has always been sharp. Even as a little boy, he asked questions that left me stumped." "Anthony, have you ever thought about putting Tyler in a private school, one with more resources to nurture his potential?" The question caught Anthony off guard. "Teacher, private schools are expensive. I can't afford it." "What if there was a scholarship? Many schools offer scholarships for talented students." That night, Anthony talked to Tyler about the possibility. "Dad, but I like my school. I have friends there." "I know, son, but a better school could give you opportunities I'd never be able to provide. What about Grandma? Who'll keep her company when you're at work and I'm at the new school?" Tyler's concern for his grandmother touched Anthony deeply. Even faced with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the boy thought of his family first. "Tyler, we'll always figure it out. What matters is you getting the best education possible." "Can I think about it?" "Of course, son. It's a big decision." The following week, Tyler surprised everyone with his answer. "Dad, I'll go to the new school, but only if Grandma agrees, and you promise we'll keep visiting my friends from the old school." Margaret was moved by her grandson's thoughtfulness. "My angel, you should follow the path that will make you happiest and brightest. I'm just proud knowing you're thinking of me." Richard helped secure a full scholarship at one of the best private schools in the city. Tyler adjusted quickly, but kept his humility and family values. 6 months after Tyler and Richard first met, much had changed. Anthony was doing well in college, Tyler excelled at his new school, and Margaret had fully recovered, even returning to making her famous chocolate truffles. But the most significant change was happening in Richard and Catherine's lives. Inspired by the Parker family, they had begun re-evaluating their own priorities. "Richard, I have something to tell you," Catherine said one night over dinner. "What is it?" "I went to the doctor this week for some tests." Richard grew concerned. "Is everything okay? Are you sick?" "No, it's not that. I wanted to find out why we've never been able to have children." Richard stopped eating, his attention fully on his wife. "What did the doctor say?" "That there's nothing wrong with me, or with you, based on the tests you had years ago. Sometimes it just doesn't happen naturally." "Catherine, why did you look into this now?" "Because of Tyler and Anthony. Seeing them made me realize the emptiness in our lives. And the doctor mentioned other options." "What kind of options?" "Adoption, Richard. There are so many children needing a family." Catherine's suggestion completely blindsided Richard. They'd never seriously discussed adoption before. "Do you really want this?" "I do. And I think you do too. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet." Richard fell silent, processing the idea. Over the past months, he'd discovered a part of himself he never knew existed. Fatherhood, even indirectly through his bond with Tyler, had awakened instincts he'd long ignored. "Catherine, this is a huge decision. It would change our lives completely." For the better, Richard. Tyler showed us how a child can bring joy and purpose to a home. They talked late into the night, exploring the possibility of expanding their family through adoption. It was a new and challenging path, but one they were both beginning to seriously consider. The next day, Richard had a conversation with Tyler about the subject, without specifically mentioning their plans. Tyler, what do you think about the idea of adoption? What do you mean, Mr. Coleman? When a family adopts a child who needs parents. Tyler thought carefully before answering. I think it's a really beautiful thing. Everyone deserves to have a family that loves them. Why are you asking? Just curious. Do you think an adopted child can be loved as much as a biological child? Of course, love has nothing to do with blood. It's about care, affection, being there when someone needs you. Tyler's answer once again impressed Richard with its maturity. You're very wise for your age, Tyler. Dad always says life teaches things to those who are willing to learn. 2 weeks later, Richard and Catherine began the adoption qualification process. It was a bureaucratic and emotional journey, but they were both determined. During this time, the relationship between the Coleman and Parker families grew even closer. Weekend dinners became a tradition, and Tyler began to see Richard and Catherine as extended family. Dad, Mr. Coleman and Mrs. Catherine are like an aunt and uncle to us, right? Tyler commented one day. Why do you say that, son? Because they care about us like family does, and we care about them too. Anthony smiled, realizing how perfectly his son had defined the relationship that had developed between them. One day, while Richard was reviewing reports in his office, he received an unexpected call from the care home where he and Catherine were registered for adoption. Mr. Coleman, this is social worker Mary Thompson. We have a situation we'd like to discuss with you and your wife. What kind of situation? A child has arrived at the home who we think might be a good match for you. He's a 6-year-old boy, very bright and affectionate, but with a somewhat complicated history. Richard's heart raced. What kind of complicated history? I'd rather explain in person. Can you come here tomorrow? That night, Richard and Catherine barely slept, filled with anxiety and anticipation. Do you think we're ready for this? Catherine asked. No one is ever completely ready to be a parent, but I think we've learned a lot from Tyler and Anthony about what really matters in a family. The next day at the care home, Mary Thompson introduced them to a boy named Ethan. He was 6 years old with dark hair and big eyes that seemed to have seen more than any child should. Ethan, these are Richard and Catherine. They'd like to get to know you better, Mary said kindly. Ethan greeted them politely, but it was obvious he was nervous. Hi, Ethan. It's so nice to meet you, Catherine said, crouching to his level. Do you want to adopt me? Ethan asked directly, without hesitation. The blunt question took Richard and Catherine by surprise. We'd like to get to know you first, see if we get along, Richard answered honestly. Can I ask you some questions? Of course, Ethan. Ask whatever you'd like. Will you send me back if I do something wrong? The question broke Catherine's heart. Ethan, real family doesn't send anyone away. If we decide to be a family, it'll be forever, even when we make mistakes. What if I can't be the son you want? Richard knelt in front of Ethan. Ethan, we don't want you to be anything other than who you are. We want to know the real you and love that person. The boy was thoughtful for a moment. Can I think about it? Of course. It's a very important decision, said Catherine. In the following days, Richard and Catherine visited Ethan several times. They discovered he loved books, adored drawing, and had a natural talent for math. Ethan reminds me of Tyler in some ways, Catherine commented after one of their visits. It's true. The same intelligence, the same maturity for his age. Do you think they'd get along? There's only one way to find out. Richard had an idea. With the social worker's permission, he arranged a meeting between Ethan and the Parker family at a park over the weekend. Tyler was immediately curious about Ethan. Do you live at the care home? Tyler asked bluntly. Yes, for 6 months now, Ethan replied. And before that? I lived with my aunt, but she got sick and couldn't take care of me anymore. Tyler nodded understandingly. I was worried too when my grandma got sick. It must have been scary for you. Tyler's immediate empathy broke the ice, and soon the two boys were playing together like old friends. "They get along really well," observed Anthony. "Tyler makes friends easily. He always has," said Richard, watching the children play. "Ethan seems like a special boy, too." "Yes, Catherine and I are considering adopting him." Anthony was surprised by the revelation. "Really? That's wonderful. Tyler would be so happy to have a younger brother." "Brother?" "That's how he'll see it, Mr. Coleman. Tyler has a huge heart. To him, everyone we love becomes family." By the end of the afternoon, when it was time for Ethan to return to the care home, Tyler said goodbye with a promise. "Ethan, if Mr. Richard and Mrs. Catherine adopt you, we'll be like brothers. I can teach you lots of cool things." "And can you teach me how to draw?" Ethan asked. "You draw really well." "Of course. And I can also introduce you to Grandma Margaret. She makes the best chocolate truffles in the world." The simplicity with which Tyler included Ethan in the family deeply moved all the adults present. That night, Ethan told the social worker he wanted Richard and Catherine to be his adoptive parents. "I'm sure, Aunt Mary, they're as good as Tyler said, and I want a real family." A week later, Ethan moved into the Coleman home. The adjustment was smoother than expected, mostly because Tyler became his mentor and best friend. "Ethan, this is your home now," Catherine said on his first day. "You can touch everything, explore, ask questions." "Really? I can?" "Really? You're part of this family now." Ethan explored the house with curiosity, but what impressed him most was the study filled with books. "Can I read these books?" "As many as you can," Richard replied. "And if you need help with a hard word, just ask." In the following months, the Colemans' lives changed completely. Ethan brought a new energy to the house with his constant questions, his drawings scattered on the kitchen table, and his moments of spontaneous affection. "Richard, do you regret it?" Catherine asked one night after putting Ethan to bed. "Regret what?" "That our lives have changed so much. Before, everything was organized, predictable." Richard smiled. "Catherine, before, our house was a beautiful place where two people lived. Now it's a home where a family lives. I'd never regret that." The bond between Ethan and Tyler continued to grow stronger. Tyler naturally took on the role of big brother, teaching Ethan about school, friends, and life in general. "Tyler, can I tell you a secret?" Ethan said one day while playing in the Coleman's backyard. "Of course, Ethan. I was afraid you wouldn't like me. At the care home, some kids came back because their families changed their minds." Tyler stopped playing and looked seriously at Ethan. "Ethan, listen to me. Mr. Richard and Mrs. Catherine are the kindest people I know, after my dad and my grandma. They would never change their minds about you, and even if they did, which won't happen, you'll always have us. Dad, Grandma Margaret, and me. We're your family now, too." Ethan felt his eyes fill with tears of relief and gratitude. "Really?" "Really. Family isn't just who lives in the same house. It's who cares for you, looks after you, loves you. And we love you, Ethan." That night, Ethan told Richard and Catherine about his conversation with Tyler. "Dad, Richard, Tyler said even if you didn't want me anymore, I'd always have his family. Is that true?" Richard was moved to be called Dad for the first time. "Ethan, first, we will always want you. You're our son now forever. Second, yes, the Parker family is your family too. When two families love each other like ours and theirs do, they become one family." "So I have two dads, two grandmas, and a brother?" "Exactly. You have a very big family who loves you very much." Ethan smiled, and Richard realized it was the first time he'd seen the boy truly relaxed and secure. 6 months after Ethan's adoption, life had settled into a new routine. Ethan was adjusting well to school. Richard had been promoted at work due to the excellent results of his new People First policies, and Anthony was about to graduate with his engineering degree. "Dad, can I have a birthday party?" asked Ethan, who would be turning 7. "Of course. What kind of party do you want?" "I want to invite Tyler, Uncle Anthony, Grandma Margaret, my new school friends, and also my friends from the care home who haven't been adopted yet. Ethan's generosity in not forgetting the children left behind touched Catherine deeply. "Ethan, that's a wonderful idea. We'll throw a beautiful party." Ethan's birthday party became a milestone for both families. Seeing the children from St. Vincent Care Home playing at the Coleman's house, being cared for by Margaret as if they were her own grandchildren, made everyone reflect on how small actions can have big impacts. "Mrs. Catherine," said one of the social workers who had accompanied the children from the home, "have you ever considered registering as a temporary foster family?" "What does that mean?" "When children arrive at the home and need a temporary place while their legal situation is resolved, prepared families can take them in for short periods." Catherine looked at Richard, who nodded slightly. "It's something we could consider in the future," Catherine replied. That night, after everyone had left and Ethan was asleep, Richard and Catherine talked about the possibility. "Ethan has changed our perspective on so many things," Richard said. "True. Before, we only thought about ourselves. Now we think about how we can help other families, other children." "Do you think Ethan would be okay sharing attention with other kids temporarily?" Knowing Ethan, I think he'd be the first to want to help. The next day, they talked to Ethan about the possibility of temporarily fostering other children. "Really? Other kids could stay here?" Ethan was excited. "Temporarily, while they wait to go back to their families or find new ones," Catherine explained. "I think that's great. Then they won't be sad at the home, and I can teach them the things Tyler taught me." Ethan's emotional maturity for his age continued to amaze his adoptive parents. 2 years passed. Ethan was now 9, Tyler was 11, and both were excellent students. Anthony had graduated with his engineering degree and received a significant promotion at work. Margaret, at 74 years old, was healthy and the proudest grandmother in the neighborhood. The Coleman household had officially become a foster family, having temporarily taken in 7 children over the past 2 years. Each one left a special mark on the family, and some still kept in regular contact. "Dad Richard," said Ethan one day while they were doing homework together, "can I ask you a tough question?" "Of course, son. Ask me anything." "Do you think if you and Mom Catherine had a real child of your own, you'd love me the same way?" The question caught Richard off guard with its emotional depth. "Ethan, let me explain something very important. You are our real child. Not because you were born to us, but because we chose you and you chose us. And that kind of choice, that kind of love, is sometimes even stronger than the love that happens automatically." "What do you mean?" "When a child is born to their parents, they love them automatically. When a family is formed through adoption, it's because everyone consciously decided they wanted to be a family. It's love by choice, Ethan. And that's the most special kind of love there is." Ethan grew thoughtful for a moment. "So I'm special because you chose me?" "You're special for so many reasons. But yes, the fact that we chose each other makes our family unique." That night, Ethan shared the conversation with Tyler during a phone call. "Ethan, my dad always tells me something. Family isn't about blood, it's about heart. You have Uncle Richard and Aunt Catherine's heart, and they have yours. That's what matters." "Tyler, do you think we're real brothers?" "Of course we are. A brother isn't just someone born from the same mother. A brother is someone who shares secrets, plays together, looks out for each other. We do all of that." "That's true. And when I grow up, I want to be just like you, brave and protective of our family." Tyler was moved by his younger brother's praise. "Ethan, you're already brave. Remember when you stood up for Emily when she was being teased at school? And you've always been protective, looking after the kids who stay with your family temporarily." The friendship between the two boys had become an example for the whole community. Teachers, neighbors, and relatives often remarked on the special bond between Tyler and Ethan. 3 years after Tyler and Richard first met, much had changed. The Coleman and Parker families had become an example of how love can overcome social and economic differences, creating bonds that transcend conventions. Anthony, now head engineer of the maintenance department, was developing innovative projects that saved energy and resources for the company. His story of overcoming adversity had become an inspiration to other employees. Tyler, at 12 years old, was in 7th grade and dreamed of pursuing a career in engineering like his father, but he had also developed a passion for child psychology, inspired by his experiences with the children temporarily fostered by the Colemans. Ethan, at 10, remained the affectionate and empathetic boy who had won everyone's heart. His ability to welcome other vulnerable children had made him a little community leader. Richard and Catherine had discovered a new dimension of love and happiness. The house that was once quiet and orderly was now full of life, laughter, and little messes that made every day an adventure. Margaret, at 77, had become the official grandmother to all the children who passed through the Coleman home. Her stories and brownies were famous throughout the neighborhood. One Sunday afternoon, during one of their traditional family lunches, Ethan made an announcement that surprised everyone. "Everyone, I have something important to say," the boy declared, standing up solemnly. Everyone stopped talking and looked at him. "I was thinking, our family is very special. We have 2 homes but only one heart. We have different parents, but we love them all the same. I think we should do something to show the world how different families can love each other." "What do you have in mind, Ethan?" asked Richard, curious. "How about we do a project at school, telling our story, teaching other kids that family can take many different forms?" Ethan's idea excited Tyler immediately. "Ethan, that's brilliant. We could do a presentation showing how our family grew, how you all adopted me as a brother, how my dad almost became Ethan's dad too." Catherine was moved by the boy's initiative. "It's a wonderful idea. You can teach other children that love has no limits, and that second chances can change lives," added Anthony, looking gratefully at Richard. "And sometimes the best things in life happen when we least expect them," said Margaret wisely. Richard looked around the table at his extended family. 2 years ago, his life had been predictable and empty. Now he was surrounded by people he loved, and who loved him unconditionally. "You know what amazes me most about our story," Richard said. "It all started with the courage of an 8-year-old boy who wasn't afraid to fight for what he believed in." "And the kindness of a man who knew how to listen with his heart," Anthony replied. "And the wisdom of people who understood that love is about giving, not receiving," Catherine added. Ethan and Tyler exchanged knowing glances. "So are we decided? We'll tell our story at school?" Ethan asked. "We're decided," they all answered in unison. 2 weeks later, in the auditorium of Ethan's school, the Parker and Coleman families shared their story with an audience of parents, teachers, and students. Tyler and Ethan led the presentation, explaining in their own words how a child's plea had transformed multiple lives. "Our story shows that family is about choices," Tyler told the audience. "My dad chose to love me unconditionally, even when it meant sacrifices. Mr. Richard chose to give my dad a second chance. Mrs. Catherine and Mr. Richard chose to adopt Ethan, and all of us chose to be a family even though we're different." Ethan added, "And the best part is, our family keeps growing. Every child who stays with us temporarily takes a little piece of our love and leaves a little piece of theirs. That way our hearts just keep getting bigger." The presentation ended with tears in the audience and a long round of applause. Several families approached afterward, interested in learning more about adoption and foster care. "You planted important seeds today," the school principal told Richard and Catherine. "Stories like yours inspire others to open their hearts." On the way home, Ethan was quiet in the back seat. "Ethan, are you okay?" Catherine asked. "I've been thinking, Mom. Are there other kids like me, waiting for families like you?" "There are many, sweetheart. Why do you ask?" "Because now that I know how good it feels to have a family, I want every child to have the same chance I did." Richard and Catherine exchanged glances in the rearview mirror. Their 10-year-old son was showing extraordinary emotional and social maturity. "Ethan, when you grow up, I'm sure you'll help many families and children," Richard said. "I don't have to wait till I grow up, Dad. I can start now, by being a good example and telling our story to anyone who'll listen." That evening, the 2 families gathered at the Parker's house to celebrate the success of the presentation. Margaret had prepared a lavish table, and the atmosphere was filled with joy and gratitude. "I'd like to make a toast," said Anthony, raising his glass of soda. 3 years ago, I was a worried man, working 2 jobs, caring for my sick mother, and raising my son alone. Today, I'm a respected engineer. I have an extended family I love, and my son has a bright future ahead of him. Daddy, you forgot something, Tyler interrupted. What, son? You've always been a hero. The difference is now other people see it too. Margaret wiped tears from her eyes. My grandchildren are far too wise for their age. It's because they learned from the best teacher, said Catherine, looking affectionately at the family matriarch. Mrs. Margaret, Ethan said, can you teach me how to make brigadeiro? I want to know how so I can make it when other kids stay with us temporarily. Of course, my angel. We'll start our lessons tomorrow. Richard watched the scene with a full heart. 3 years ago, he was a successful but emotionally empty businessman. Now he was a father, uncle, friend, mentor, roles he never knew he wanted, but had given his life complete meaning. Tyler, Richard said, I have a confession to make. What is it, Mr. Richard? That day when you showed up at my office, I was so angry at your dad for missing work that I'd already decided to fire him. Your courage didn't just save his job, it saved my humanity. Tyler grew thoughtful. Mr. Richard, I think we saved each other. You saved our family, but we saved yours too, didn't we? The simplicity with which Tyler summed up the complexity of their family journey made everyone laugh and tear up at the same time. Ethan, Margaret said, tell Grandma, what's your biggest dream? Ethan thought carefully before answering. My biggest dream is that one day, every child in the world has at least one person who loves them the way you all love me, and that every parent has kids who love them the way I love you. And you, Tyler, what's your biggest dream? Catherine asked. My dream is to be like my dad, someone who works hard, takes care of his family, and never gives up on his dreams. And I also want to be like Mr. Richard, someone who gives others a chance to grow. Anthony was moved hearing his son speak of him with such pride. Tyler, you're already all those things, and so much more. And I want to be like Tyler, Ethan said, brave enough to stand up for the people I love. Do you know what my dream is now? Richard said. It's to watch you two grow up, achieve your own dreams, build your own families, and teach your children the values you've learned here with us. And my dream, Catherine said, is for our story to inspire other families to form through love, not just blood. And my dream, Margaret said, is to live long enough to see my great-grandchildren playing together at this very table. Grandma, you're going to live a long, long time, Ethan said, kissing the matriarch's cheek. You still have to teach me lots of recipes and tell me lots of stories. When it was time for the families to part ways and head to their own homes, the hugs were long and tight. See you tomorrow, brother, Ethan said to Tyler. See you tomorrow, Ethan. Sweet dreams. You too. On the drive home, Ethan was drowsy in the back seat. Mom, Dad, he said, his voice already thick with sleep. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for choosing us too, son, Catherine replied. And thank you for making our lives so rich with love, Richard added. Ethan smiled and closed his eyes, safe in the love of his family. The end. So, what did you think of this family love story? Tell us in the comments which part touched your heart the most, and if you've ever experienced a similar situation in your family. Your opinion means so much to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.